this week on Why Won't This Shit End Already? The Silver Arrows are returning after the summer break, where they went into the break with another double podium finish off of Ferrari's misfortunes and not knowing what the fuck a pit strategy is. So of course the Silver Arrows, they all enjoyed their 4 weeks off during the summer break to rest and recuperate and refocus for the final 9 races of the season. As they look to catch Ferrari for second in the Constructors' Championship. Of course, during this time, Lewis Hamilton, of course, had the most spotlight on him throughout this timeline, throughout this 4 weeks break. As Lewis Hamilton would go on and comment about how he was not being accepted by the F1 community when he first joined the sport. Because if he was a black man in a sport dominated by white people. Lewis Hamilton playing the race card. Let me just be clear about one thing. I don't give a fuck what your skin color is. The one thing I have for evaluating is, can you perform on the track? Can you get the most out of your goddamn equipment? If you can do all of that and much more, then I will respect you. Respect isn't handed out in this world. It has to be earned. And I'll say this for Hamilton's sake. He at least has gotten the most out of his cars the last 8-9 years, so I can respect him on that front. He's a damn talented driver, but he always acts like a goddamn diva drama queen. Of course, there was also news that came out that Lewis Hamilton was supposed to be starring as a pilot in the new Top Gun Maverick movie. But Hamilton had to back out of it, because the filming schedule interfered with the F1 season this year. That's such a bummer. And then Lewis Hamilton, he would go on and comment about Abu Dhabi, his thoughts after Abu Dhabi 2021 in the championship last year, when Hamilton lost the championship to Verstappen in the finale. And Hamilton saying that this wasn't real and he couldn't believe it, and that it took a hard time for him to get over it. And it's very clear that that can't translate over to this season, with Hamilton now going the longest into a season without winning a race. It's like, seriously, you're still fucking salty about Abu Dhabi? Jesus Christ. You had 21 other races to not put yourself in that position. And you failed in a season-long points format. You put yourself in that fucking position. It's your own goddamn fault you lost the championship last year. And it's very clear this year Hamilton hasn't gone over it. But continuing on, Lewis Hamilton would end off his time by going around the world and visiting different cultures, including taking pictures with goats and other African tribes, to embrace the many different cultures around the society today. Sir Lewis, leader of men. Of course, for Lewis Hamilton and the Silver Arrows, they will have the benefit of having good track position, since Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc would both be starting at the rear of the field along with 4 other drivers, after both Verstappen and Leclerc had to take engine changes for their cars and take grid penalties, as they exceeded the parts cap limit already at this point of the season. Well, yeah, I mean, when you have so many reliability issues early on in the year, that will catch up to you later on in the year. So the Silver Arrows, they're gunned up to have some good positioning heading into Belgium. Of course, now the series shifts their attention now to the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps. Of course, last year at Spa, we do not talk about that scam job of a race. So, of course, with Verstappen and Leclerc going to the back, it meant that Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez would start on the front row. Hamilton would end up getting 4th, with Russell in 5th. And Fernando Alonso would start 3rd. Everybody got off the line well, including Sainz, who would end up getting the lead right off the bat. But of course, the battle was happening for 3rd right behind between Alonso and Hamilton, where Hamilton would try and make a move on the outside heading into El Rouge, off the big long straightaway. But then, in the chicane, Hamilton would try and cut Alonso off. And Alonso was not going to back off to Hamilton. And then Alonso decided to just straight up punt Lewis Hamilton out of the way, and Hamilton would end up suffering rear-end mechanical fork damage to the car, and Hamilton was forced to park the car and retire from the race. So not even one lap into the race and Lewis Hamilton is already out. And it's honestly Hamilton's own fault that he crashed. Because, yeah, that crash, that's what happens when you don't leave the space. He tried to cut Alonso off, and Alonso was not having any of it. Yep, Alonso flat. Yeah, we all know from the past, Alonso does not take Lewis Hamilton's shit very well. So after Lewis retired, we would have Valtteri Bottas retire after a spin as well, and Latifi also spun too. But Verstappen was able to gain some positions early on in the race. Carlos Sainz would lead for much of the early part of the race between him and Sergio Perez, until Max Verstappen would eventually come up and pass them all, and Verstappen would get the lead around lap 18. And once Verstappen got the lead, he never looked back. Well, the first half of that race was actually pretty interesting, and then the second half happened. And the second half was kind of boring, because once Verstappen got to the lead, it was just a simple dick punch back to reality. As Max Verstappen, he would easily go on and cruise to the win. So Verstappen gets the win, with Perez finishing second, and Carlos Sainz ends up on the podium in third. Surprising that Ferrari didn't fuck that up for once. And of course, Leclerc was going to end up fourth, but hold up, we got a penalty. Beep! Because, for Charles Leclerc, he was caught speeding on pit lane when Ferrari decided late in the race to pit him for fastest lap, with Ferrari making another bad strategy call, and it cost Leclerc some valuable points, as Leclerc would get a 5-second time penalty, which would drop him to 6th, with Alonso going to 5th. You know what? From now on, anytime Ferrari fucks up, they are going to get the goddamn enough from the clown clip. Enough from the clown. Like I said before, how about let Leclerc and Sainz come up with the pit strategies from now on? They might do a better fucking job than the monkeys we got in the pit box right now.
Enough from the clown! Enough from the clown! Enough from the clown! Enough from the clown!
So with Max Verstappen getting the win in Belgium this year, Max Verstappen now expands his lead to over 90 points over Sergio Perez, who now jumps to second, thanks to Leclerc's misfortunes. And Carlos Sainz now jumps 1 point ahead of George Russell, but Ferrari do gain 5 points on Mercedes for second in the Constructors' Championship. Hamilton remains down in 6th, and by the way, I should mention here, because we will be getting to the death note in a little bit, that 7th on down have all officially been mathematically eliminated in the Drivers' Championship. And 4th on down in the Constructors' Championship have also been mathematically eliminated. And you want to know who the next team to be eliminating the Constructors is? Mercedes. Yeah, the last 3 teams that are still eligible for Constructors are Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes. The 3 most dominant teams the last decade. So surprising. And of course, in the Drivers' Championship, you want to know who would be the next driver to be eliminated? It would be Lewis Hamilton. But that would probably be in a few races from now. Or maybe sooner if Hamilton keeps up his poor form. So Hamilton's winless streak continues, and after the race, Fernando Alonso would go on and call Lewis Hamilton an idiot for how he drove. I mean, Alonso, he's not wrong. Hamilton was a complete dumbass for that move. Because Lewis Hamilton decided to cut him off and decided not to leave the space. And of course, Lewis Hamilton said that he felt hurt by Fernando's comments and saying he would not talk to him for calling him an idiot. Well, he told you the fucking truth, Lewis. You were a fucking dumbass for that move. Own up to your fucking mistakes. But of course, Lewis is trying to say that it's not his fault that he cut Fernando off. It was the car's fault. It's just excuses, excuses, and excuses out of Lewis, instead of actually manning up and taking responsibility for his own fuck-ups. You know, by the way, I should mention that when Alonso dumped Hamilton and punted him, the fans cheered when Hamilton DNF. Uh-oh, the fans cheered for Hamilton's demise. Uh-oh, Hamilton ain't gonna like that. Well, fuck him. And fuck Hamilton's fan base, too. Any goodwill I had for Lewis Hamilton the last couple years is now quickly worn out its welcome. Be honest, Lewis, I hope you don't win another race the rest of your career. And yeah, you can timestamp that moment for when this badly ages poorly. Because if Hamilton fans are offended, don't worry, he's probably gonna win it like fucking Brazil this year or some shit late in the year. Just to get our hopes up of a winless Hamilton season. But yeah, if Hamilton thinks the fans cheering this week was bad, oh Hamilton, wait till next week when we go to Zandvoort in the Netherlands. Max Verstappen's home race, where 99% of the crowd is dominated by the Orange Army. And oh boy, you know how they're gonna treat Hamilton. They 100% will cheer for his demise. And all those Verstappen fans, they haven't forgot about what you said about him. Forgot what Lewis said about him back in Austria. Oh, Hamilton knows Verstappen's Orange Army. Oh, they're gonna treat you real good in the Netherlands. They're gonna treat you real well there. Oh yeah. Because like the sands in the hourglass, so too are the days of our Mercedes. I wonder what the FIA is gonna do in Zandvoort to try and protect Hamilton this time. But before we wrap this video up, we do have some things to say though, because while everybody else is taking out their Metro cards and heading on the L train tonight though, for Lando Norris, Esteban Ocon, Fernando Alonso, and Valtteri Bottas, their rides home will officially be short-lived because they've arrived at Elimination Station. And for that, they go somewhere different because for their failures of having a solid season, their failures of getting enough wins to compete for the championship this year, their failures of being consistent enough to compete for the titles this year, their failures to show up and perform when it mattered the most this year, and their hopes and dreams of winning the World Drivers' Championship at F1 this year. Consider their names written down in the Death Note, as their seasons have been absolutely deleted. But hold up, I ain't done just yet, because also tonight for Alpine, McLaren, and Alfa Romeo, their rides home will also be short-lived because on the constructor's side, they have also arrived at Elimination Station. And for that, they also go somewhere different too. Because for their failures of having a solid season, their failures of getting enough wins in to compete for the championship this year, their failures of being consistent enough to compete for the title this year, their failures of being able to show up and perform when it mattered the most, and their hopes and dreams of winning the Constructors' Championship at F1 this year. Consider their names written down in the Death Note as well, as their seasons too have also been absolutely deleted.
There's only one thing left to do. Gotta write their names in the Death Note. Delete!
Delete, 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 delete.
You will rest in Peace.